9th of March, 2021, in the Central Park neighborhood of Denver, Colorado. A quiet morning began like any other. However, amid the tree-lined streets and neat rows of houses, there was a strange. Jasmine's Mini Cooper had drifted away from its usual spot. There was no sound of a door opening, no sound of a candle burning. The neighborhood was still immersed in a familiar silence, but it was the silence that signaled that something was beginning to go wrong. Jasmine Cigaroa, 24, was discovered missing from her apartment under mysterious circumstances. The door was locked, the interior was neat, and there was no sign of forced entry. The building's security cameras had stopped working at the sensitive time of day, an unusual detail in the normally gated neighborhood. Jasmine was known as an excellent student, a beloved young wife, a private person who rarely shared personal matters. In the last days before her disappearance, she still went to school, still talked to her friends, but there was something in her eyes that made some people notice. The insecurity seemed to have been there all along. It was just that no one was aware of its severity. The case didn't start with chaos. It started with absences, a person who stopped responding to messages, a car that was out of place, and a few scattered clues in an otherwise normal scene. Behind the calm, a series of actions were quietly planned and executed. And when the truth finally came out, it left a heavy silence, not just in the room, but in the hearts of everyone who knew Jasmine. The victim in the case was Jasmine Cigaroa, 24, a young woman who was attending graduate school in Denver, Colorado. She lived in Central Park, a residential area that is highly regarded for its safety and is often chosen by career-oriented young people. According to her academic records, Jasmine was an excellent student with long-term plans to develop in the fields of education and research. Jasmine's family describes her as responsible, easygoing, and trusted in her personal decisions. Friends note that she is often proactive in helping others, maintains a positive attitude, and maintains close relationships with both sides of her family. In the eyes of those around her, she is a typical example of a successful, loved, and hopeful young person. Jasmine's husband, Jonathan Nuno Majangos, 35, had worked in the medical field and aspired to become a physician's assistant. On the surface, he appeared quiet and well-mannered in social settings. But internal records and testimony from Jasmine's close friends revealed a different side. Jonathan had been overly controlling and violent.
So when she did confide in you, what did she tell you about what was happening?
She just told me, I have a confession to make. I haven't been completely honest with you. I've been in an abusive relationship with Johnny, and I've gone to the hospital a few times because of it. And she has tried leaving, and he apparently has tried leaving too, but they always come back together.
Okay. But she says she went to the hospital a couple times?
That's what she told me. I honestly didn't. She told me about it, but I didn't know the extent of it.
Gotcha. So she didn't say, like, how she was physically hurt or anything like that?
She just said general response, like he would hit me, but no other explanations if it was with fists or anything else.
Okay. What was your impression of Jonathan when you were around him? What kind of person was he? Was he quiet? Was he outgoing? Something else?
Hanging out with him with Jasmine, he seemed more outgoing than Jasmine. He would ask me how work was, and then he shared with me that he wanted to become a physician's assistant at one point. So I honestly thought the relationship was taking a turn and that he was changing and wanted to get his life around. So I just believed in that. I did not expect for.
Several incidents in the past had landed Jasmine in the hospital, though she had always kept them quiet to her family. Their marriage was not entirely peaceful. Quarrels were periodic, interspersed with brief lulls. Jasmine once said she felt tired but not strong enough to leave. Jonathan was also the last person to confirm seeing Jasmine alive. He was not an outsider, he was central. And it was his quiet presence in the days after Jasmine disappeared that drew investigators' attention to what might have happened inside that seemingly peaceful apartment.
My wife was in the morning.
Okay.
Before I went to work.
Yesterday?
Yesterday.
Okay.
She had texted me, said she was going to go out with a friend.
Okay.
Never mentioned where she was going or anything.
Okay.
I came home.
How did she go out? I saw something about her car's here.
Her car is here, so
Okay.
I don't know if her friend came and picked her up.
She didn't tell you?
No.
Wow.
No. So she usually tells me for like.
Does she left her phone here? Okay, what's your name, man?
My name is Jonathan.
Do you have any place that she could be that we could try?
We have a friend in Colorado Springs.
And you tried that? You haven't heard anything?
No, I haven't heard anything.
Has she done this before?
She has gone out before, but she usually comes back.
Really?
Yeah.
But she's gone out and just not told you?
She's gone out and told me and just comes back, or if she doesn't tell me, she forgets and she comes home.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, and this is since yesterday morning?
Yesterday morning.
Okay.
But I saw her yesterday morning, and when I came home, she wasn't here anymore.
But it's not like her to be gone this long, right?
No.
What's her name?
Jasmine.
Has she wanted to hurt herself at all before, or?
In the past,
Yeah?
she's had tendencies, so that was like before we got
And
married.
I don't mean to be negative, I'm just thinking, have we tried hospitals at all, or?
I have not tried
Okay.
in hospitals.
Okay.
I
You
probably
work,
should've
you
done
work
that
for
first.
Centura.
Yeah.
To those around them, Jasmine and Jonathan's relationship seemed stable, even cozy at times. They appeared together at family events, behaved properly in front of friends, and showed no obvious signs of anything out of the ordinary. However, hospital records showed that Jasmine had been hospitalized several times with soft tissue injuries, which she often explained as the result of household accidents or falls. Although she never openly admitted it, Jasmine gradually became aware that the relationship was no longer safe. Several close friends said she had expressed a desire to leave the marriage, but she ended up staying. Her resolve to leave was often replaced by hesitation and fear, a state that kept her trapped in a vicious cycle. There was no behavior so blatant as to alarm outsiders, but all the signs were that Jasmine was living in a stressful, uncontrolled environment from which she could not easily escape. In 2019, Jasmine Figueroa went to the police to report a serious case of domestic violence. In her initial statement, she said her husband, Jonathan Nuno Mijangos, had choked her during an argument. However, the complaint was withdrawn shortly thereafter. The specific reason was not specified in the file, and the case was not investigated further. From that point on, changes in Jasmine's behavior began to appear, subtle but noticeable enough for those close to her to notice. She became withdrawn, limiting her social interactions, and avoiding mentioning her husband in conversation. Her previously close friendships became less frequent. Jasmine still attended class regularly, completed her schoolwork, and maintained a normal appearance, but her mental state showed otherwise. According to her classmates and acquaintances, Jasmine still maintains the image of a responsible woman, always smiling at the right times and not revealing her inner turmoil. However, her prolonged silence, along with her avoidance of talking about her personal life, is a sign that she is suffering from something, not just for a moment, but for a period of time long enough to erode her energy and initiative. Just days before Jasmine Figueroa went missing, she sent a short text message to a close friend. "I'm not sure this is okay anymore." No explanation was given. At the time, Jasmine was finishing her master's thesis and preparing for her upcoming graduation. People around her noticed that she remained calm and did not share anything unusual, seemingly intentionally not wanting to cause concern or attract attention. Meanwhile, Jonathan's behavior began to become more apparent. According to friends and analysis of Jasmine's personal diary, he began to control her life to an alarming degree, from tracking her schedule, interfering with her calls, to limiting her social interactions. The relationship gradually shifted from a husband and wife relationship to a tense, cold one, where dialogue was replaced by distance and control. The night of the incident, the security camera system in their apartment was suddenly cut off at exactly 11 p.m. There was no record of anyone entering or leaving the building during that time frame, nor was there any unusual noise detected. However, one detail that caught the police's attention was that Jasmine's Mini Cooper, which she usually parks neatly, was this time off the line, as if it had been moved in a hurry or by someone else. After that, Jasmine lost contact with everyone. Her phone was dead. Email and social media channels were silent. There were no warning messages, no goodbyes. Her disappearance quickly turned from a personal suspicion to a criminal case that the entire city was watching closely. At around 9:30 a.m. on the 9th of March, 2021, neighbors living downstairs confirmed hearing the sound of running water and light footsteps coming from the apartment above. According to the witness's description, the sound was regular and nothing unusual. This was also the final evidence that Jasmine Cigarroa was still alive at this time.
When I knocked on the door, I mentioned that we were here in regards to your neighbor who, excuse me, has been reported as missing.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if you know anything about it or what's going on, or...
So, not yesterday, day before.
So the 8th?
The 8th,
okay.
Right? Because our son had a doctor's appointment at 11. So we were sleeping here, and we'd appeared a big boom above us.
Okay. The appointment was on the 9th? Okay,
yeah.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
Yeah. It was the 9th, because, 11 o'clock appointment. So, we was all sleeping here. We hear a big boom, and it woke us all up.
At around 11 a.m. that same day, a loud noise was heard, described as sudden, dry, and different from the usual sounds of life. The shock jolted the people living below awake. Then there was complete silence, lasting for many hours.
Was it 11 a.m. or 11 p.m.?
A.m.
Okay.
And normally we thought it was the dogs running, because that's what we normally hear, but this boom was a huge boom.
Okay, they have dogs?
Yeah.
Okay.
So after we heard the boom, you heard the dogs barking, so maybe it was like they're just running, playing with the dog, because then it calmed down.
Okay.
No one left the apartment that afternoon. Jasmine, who was known for her punctuality and quick responses, abruptly cut off all communication. She did not respond to text messages or phone calls. Her regular Mini Cooper was missing from the garage.
Okay.
So then we still laid here for it was like 20 minutes before we heard the car. And it started up, and I was like, I hope it don't wake up the baby, because it's a loud car. It's a Cooper? Mini Cooper?
A Mini Cooper? What color?
Red, with a white top.
Okay.
So it is normal. It started up and sat there, because that's what she normally do. She would get in the car, she would sit there, do what she has to do, and then she'll pull off. So then that happened yesterday.
Okay.
And then it seemed a little weird. It's kind of a little hesitant when it was pulling off. It's not the usual noise. So
okay.
We didn't pay it no mind. We ended up leaving, get dressed. I want to say, wasn't the red car gone before we left?
We share a garage.
You share a garage with them. Okay.
So we can always see or hear her coming in, or always cross with her.
Mm-hmm.
But then that evening, I realized the white car was in the garage. And I'm like, normally they would switch. Okay. I don't know if it's on their routine, but sometimes you'll see the white car in there, and then he'll move for her to come in to park her car. So then yesterday when it happened, it was kind of weird, because as we was leaving, we was coming, he was leaving, because this is around
the time I get off of work. I get off at like midnight.
Okay, so late last.
At around 10:32 p.m., the car returned. It was parked in an unusual spot, off the painted lines that Jasmine had always been careful about. No one got out of the car. The apartment was still dark. Witnesses reported seeing Jonathan Nuno Majengo standing near the trunk in the dark, but no specific actions were noted, and no one approached or questioned him at the time.
Yeah, it was late, because around 10-something, the white car was still in the garage. When I got home...
On the same day as the doctor's appointment?
Mm-hmm. This is all the same day.
Okay, so the 9th about 10:30 or 10-ish at night.
My nephew was here, and my sister came and got him around 10:30ish. And that's when we realized the white car was in the garage, and we was like, yeah, okay, they just switched out. So then I ended up leaving to go get him from work, and when we come back is when he's like moving the car out. We're coming in. So,
and that was after midnight then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then we didn't pay it no mind. We're in here, he's relaxing, I'm getting baby together. And then we hear the Cooper come in. So I'm thinking maybe she came home, because you could hear it, and he backed it in like she normally do. So then I'm like, okay, that's her. Nothing of it.
At 0:03 on the 10th of March, data from Jonathan's phone showed the device began to leave the apartment complex, traveling east. The route lasted more than 40 minutes, ending at a remote location near Powhatan Road, a sparsely populated, unlit, and unmonitored area. There were no recorded stops along the way. At approximately 2 a.m., the device stopped. Based on the evidence, investigators believe this is when and where Jasmine's body was left. Her body was found 2 days later in the area. An autopsy determined she died from strangulation. There were large bruises on her neck and shoulders, but no signs of stab wounds or other sharp object injuries. Death was determined to be the result of blunt force trauma and was swift, not prolonged, with few secondary injuries. Jonathan then returned home as if nothing had happened. He did not contact the police, did not report his wife missing, and did not provide a clear explanation for the apartment's security camera system being disabled at the same time as the incident. The entire sequence of actions suggests a precise, deliberate process that leaves few visible traces. There was no struggle, no panic, no obvious negligence. Every indication points to a crime committed in silence by someone with the time, means, and proximity to avoid raising suspicion until it was too late. After 2 days of not being able to contact Jasmine, relatives officially reported her to the police. Location data showed that Jonathan's phone left the city on the night of the 10th of March. Its last stop was a vacant lot near East 26th Avenue. Searchers closed in on the area and began combing. A disturbed patch of land was discovered in the weeds. Limited light conditions meant the search lasted until the next morning. Jasmine's body was found on the 12th of March, lying alone in the middle of an empty lot. There were no personal belongings, no signs of robbery. The case was officially upgraded to a murder investigation. Jasmine's body was found in her nightgown, lying in the middle of a clearing where Jonathan's device had previously recorded a signal. An autopsy revealed that she had been strangled, with visible marks on her neck and shoulders. Her body showed signs of sexual assault, but no signs of knife or sharp object injuries. The crime scene showed no attempt at elaborate concealment. The body had been left loosely on the cold ground, with no covering or other evidence of camouflage. These details were consistent with Jonathan's movements during the time frame in question, supporting a direct link between him and the victim's final destination. After Jasmine's body was discovered, the Denver Police Department immediately expanded its investigation, focusing on reconstructing the 48 hours before her disappearance. All sources of data, from the location of her cell phone to her behavior at the scene, converged on one remarkable point. Jonathan Mijangos, her husband, was the last person to be with her. Digital records show Jonathan leaving the apartment shortly after midnight, following a route that led to the location where the body was found. At the same time, the apartment's security cameras were disabled in action that could only be performed by someone with access. The list of people who knew the password was confirmed to include only 2 people, Jasmine and Jonathan. In addition to the technical data, witness testimony from the area revealed unusual noises on the morning of the 9th of March and Jonathan's presence near the car late at night. Combined with the couple's apparent changes in their daily routine, investigators concluded that this was no ordinary missing person case, but a deliberate, planned, and silent crime. When summoned to assist in the investigation, Jonathan Mijangos showed up on time and did not refuse to answer questions. However, his demeanor was described as indifferent, lacking any obvious emotion, even when mentioning his wife's disappearance. In his initial testimony, Jonathan claimed to have stayed home all night on the 9th of March, not leaving the apartment.
Okay, well, tell me where you went Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning?
Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning, I didn't go anywhere but to work. I called the police officers. They came. I left to work at 7:50.
Okay.
And I went to work. Back to work at 8:25.
You didn't leave home shortly after midnight?
No.
Okay.
However, the location records from his mobile device told a different story. The data showed that Jonathan had left the residential area at exactly midnight, with the route and time exactly matching the location where Jasmine was found. When confronted with this evidence, Jonathan changed his story, admitting to driving out to get some air and de-stress, but denying that he had stopped at any specific location.
Your story is not adding up at all. Listen, I don't think you're a bad guy. And like I said, if you made a mistake,
I didn't make a mistake.
now is the time to let us know, okay?
Fine, I did leave my house at midnight.
Okay, what happened?
I just drove. I drove and I just drove. That's it, that's all I did, I drove. I couldn't sleep. I was worrying about her, I drove.
You know, the problem that I have with that story now is I asked you 3 separate times earlier in our interview about you leaving the house, and you didn't. If I can't believe you now, or then, how can I believe you now?
Because I drove. Okay.
Where did you drive?
I just got onto I-70 and I just drove.
Did you go east or west?
I went east.
Okay. How far did you go?
Tower Road, Smith Road.
Did you stop?
No.
Didn't stop at all?
No.
Not even once?
Yes, on Smith Road.
Okay, see, there we go again, as far as the whole untruthfulness. No, yes. You don't know what I know, okay?
Throughout the interrogation, Jonathan's testimony continued to contradict one another. At one point, he said he was driving non-stop, while at another he admitted to pulling over but couldn't remember where. These inconsistencies led investigators to determine that they were no longer dealing with a witness, but rather with a subject who was trying to spin the story in his own favor. Over the course of several days of investigation, the pieces of the puzzle began to come together. At the center of the story was Jonathan Mijangos' midnight journey pinpointed by his cell phone signal, leading to the exact spot where Jasmine's body was found. This digital data became hard evidence, impossible to erase or gloss over. Jonathan's story varied from denying leaving the house to admitting to going for a walk, but unable to explain how he ended up in the exact spot where the body was found. The Mini Cooper was also parked at an odd angle, contrary to Jasmine's habits. With no plausible explanation, combined with a history of abuse and a rocky relationship, police determined that this was a premeditated murder by her husband. In 2024, Jonathan Mijangos went on trial in Denver for the murder of his wife. Before and during the trial, he maintained an uncanny composure, maintaining his innocence, and that his relationship with Jasmine was normal. That confidence stood in stark contrast to the array of evidence presented to the court. The prosecution presented a compelling array of evidence: GPS data leading to where the body was found, disabled cameras, an irregularly parked Mini Cooper, and testimony from neighbors. Witnesses, Jasmine's friends and co-workers, described the change in her personality and the anxiety she had felt in the days leading up to her disappearance. Although Jonathan pleaded not guilty, the inconsistencies in his testimony and his indifferent demeanor made it difficult for the jury to believe in his innocence. The defense tried to cite marital stress and mental pressure, but failed to provide clear medical documentation or diagnoses to support their arguments. The disjointed justifications were quickly overshadowed by the prosecutor's precise array of evidence: the route, the time the signal was lost, the camera footage, and witness testimony. Jonathan remained silent for most of his interrogation. He did not admit guilt, but he did not dispute any of the evidence. The jury returned a verdict of guilty, premeditated murder, committed by Jonathan Mijangos. The court found Jonathan Nuno Mijangos guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The verdict came after the jury unanimously agreed that the defendant's actions were deliberate, premeditated, and showed no remorse. The verdict was widely accepted by the public as fair and proportionate to the severity of the crime. While it cannot erase the loss, it brings some justice to Jasmine's family. The truth has been revealed, and the perpetrator has been punished. Jasmine's death was the heartbreaking consequence of the silence that went on in a toxic relationship. The warning signs were ignored step by step until it was too late. The tragedy was not a single moment, but a series of silent wounds that accumulated over time. The case is a stark reminder that control is never love, and silence in the face of violence is never the answer. The first step in preventing a tragedy is sometimes simply speaking up,